in. And just wanted to make sure everyone gets in, but I will have to manage some admissions throughout the next couple minutes. But you are in the right place if you're looking to get updates on the master planning process for the BV Rodeo grounds in Chicago Ranch. We are joined tonight by the NES team that's been helping the town of Buena Vista with this master planning process. They've met with staff several times over the past 6 months and have met many of you face to face, and have had several conversations via email and over the phone with our community members. And they've also hosted some one-on-one sessions with team leaders and stakeholders, and also helped put together a survey that we had 274 people in Buena Vista fill out. So with that, they were able to put together a draft proposal of the master plan and shared it with staff. We gave them some initial input, and then they're here tonight to present their findings. And then for all of our citizens and friends that are online, you'll have an opportunity to provide additional feedback and take another short survey when the timing is right. A few housekeeping items. You're on the meeting, which is great. There's going to be a second meeting at 7. So if you enjoyed your time here, you can tell your friends or family to join on. It'll be a mirror image of what we're doing at 5 o'clock today. And the way we have this set up is the NES team is going to drive the slide deck, and then they're going to do the speaking. So just be cognizant of not using your audio button. So just mute your screen until the timing comes, and then they'll direct us on when we can provide our feedback and using our icons like the thumbs up and also the chat feature. So it is being recorded, and after tonight's session, we will get it up on the MyBV website, along with the survey for folks that could not be on tonight. And let me admit a few more people. And with that, I will turn it over to the NES team. I'd like to welcome Bryn and Andy and Chris from NES.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Earl. Are you able to hear me okay, first of all?
I can hear you great.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, first of all, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And I would love to be there in person. Our team would love to be there in person with each of you in the community center and looking at plans together. But we're going to do a great job here tonight virtually. And thanks again for joining us. We do have a lot of information we want to share with you, kind of kick things off. But really, what's most important tonight is for us to get an opportunity to hear your feedback and your response. And so what I'd like to do is kind of periodically, as we're working our way through the presentation, I'll be asking for questions, and again, look forward to your response. But let's go ahead and get started. So first slide, Bryn. So this is our agenda for this evening, and as Earl had mentioned, there are really 2 parts to this. We're calling it session 1 and session 2. They're essentially identical. So if you don't get your question maybe answered, or you have further thoughts after this first session, you are absolutely welcome to join us for the second round later today. We wanted to provide opportunities that for folks that maybe have a tough time with one particular time or schedule. Essentially, we're going to be doing some quick introductions. We're going to share the results of the survey and what we've heard to date. We're going to share the design concept, kind of an alternative future for the rodeo grounds and the Chicago Ranch. We're going to ask you then to participate in an online survey, and we'll be posting that. You'll see that in the chat. You can click on that and participate. We hope you'll do that. Then come back, and we have a number of very specific topics that we want to take a deeper dive into this evening. Those really focus around trails, dogs, special event camping, and then also love your feedback on this kind of preliminary concept. And then we'll wrap things up, and then we'll move into session number 2 later today and repeat it all. So next slide, please. Great. I want to just take just a moment to talk a little bit about the opportunity that I think is in front of all of us and in the community, in that what really precipitated this was Tri-View Metropolitan District's acquisition of the Chicago Ranch. And their primary interest really is in the water associated with that. But they realized with this particular property being adjacent to the rodeo grounds, how might long-term these two properties be thought of, be managed, be available for public access, for public recreation. And so that's really what we're here to talk about tonight. And but combined collectively, this represents between the rodeo grounds and the Chicago Ranch about a 600-acre open space kind of park opportunity. So next slide. I'm Chris Lieber. You see me here on this slide, and I'm a principal at NES. Joining me here tonight online is Bryn Eiten and Annie McMillan, both again with our NES team. As part of our team, we also have Dan Maynard with Bristle Cone Ecology. And our role, again, we're land planners, we're landscape architects, park and recreation planners. That's what we bring to the table. Dan Maynard is an ecologist, and so he's really helping us out with understanding natural resources, natural resource values associated with the property. So next slide. Our role again is we're providing guidance, but really this is your plan, belongs to you as a community, and there's a whole team of folks that are really helping guide this process. And these are kind of the key, if you will, some of the key players. First of all, again, our project team that you see on the left, but the leadership team that really provides strategic guidance is made up of a number of folks from the town of Buena Vista. Joel, Joseph, Philip, and Earl, all with the town, and also Jim Grady, who is the district manager for the Tri-View Metro District. So they are essentially our project team, our leadership team, and we are touching base with them on a regular basis and have been extremely helpful in guiding the process. We also recognized early on that there are a number of key stakeholders in the community that provide really oversight for a variety of different topics and subject matters, but there also are a number of groups and organizations that already have a presence there on the rodeo grounds. And so you can see this list here on the slide. We have been in contact with each and every one of these groups and organizations, and to get their thoughts, their feedback, and really to understand more about how the rodeo grounds is used today, what some of the needs and opportunities are. And then absolutely, and of course, reaching out to the community and members of the public. And that's really what this represents tonight, this opportunity. And so thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hearing even more from you tonight. So next slide. Our overall process, we've kind of, at least graphically shown it. It's pretty simple here, and divided into 3 tasks. Tonight, we're really focused on the second task. Task 1 was all about kicking off the meeting, doing in-field site analysis, meeting with the various key stakeholder groups, holding an initial public open house. Really, that section phase was all about learning what we can about the property and opportunities. Task 2 was then taking what we've learned, and both by spending time on the property, but also from what we've heard in the community, and then putting together a draft plan, a future alternative, and of course holding this meeting tonight to get your reaction in response to that. And task 3, which will happen further into the spring, will be focused on actually creating a final master plan recommendation, and then we'll be sharing that. But these are all building blocks. And again, they are built upon the great feedback we've received to date. So next slide. In terms of public outreach, as I mentioned, we've had one-on-one. These were all coffee shop meetings primarily, or meeting with folks on site from various stakeholder groups. It was very, very insightful. We hosted a public open house and answered just general questions about the process, and received some early thoughts and ideas. Then there was the online survey on MyBV. We had a great response to that, 274 responses, and I'm hoping that the majority of you who are joining us tonight also participated in that survey that ran throughout the month of November. And then, of course, today's public open houses, both at 5 and 7, again, opportunity for more feedback. Next, please. As I mentioned, we had these one-on-one meetings with stakeholders. I just want to hit some of the highlights of the things that we heard from these groups. One, what we generally heard was that these folks really like where they operate and are pleased overall with the opportunity to utilize this land for a variety of different activities, whether it's the Sportsman's Club, the RC Airstrip Club, or the UAS Club, the Rodeo Advisory Group, and all of those folks. We heard from Sportsman Club that they would like to be able to potentially expand. We're going to be meeting with them to learn more about what that exactly means and looks like. Almost all groups stated a desire for a pavilion, a restroom, some type of a shade structure, benches, really kind of some of those auxiliary facilities to help support the activities that already take place on the property. The idea of having parking and easy access for each of the activities throughout the site was very important. Many of them favored separation of uses almost all groups also said there needs to be some thought given to dog maintenance and thinking about a cleanup plan. Also very much an interest in maintaining the special events that take place there, but also kind of an interest in seeing what additional events might be possible to maybe host out there throughout the year. Advocacy for signage, for placemaking, wayfinding, and maybe talking about the history of the property and maybe re-veg and environmental education. Generally a willingness to work together to accommodate some of the specific needs. So that's kind of collectively looking at how could they solve problems, but also then universally this idea of how might the various groups or the community look for ways to engage youth on the site in terms of whatever comes forward in a plan. So next slide. At the public open house and through some of our early survey work, we heard that certainly the rodeo grounds is an important asset and place for the community, a gathering space, particularly for things like the 4th of July. That the property really is unique, provides some unique opportunities because it's relatively flat, it's open terrain, which is rather unusual and uncommon in the BV area. I mentioned all these special events are very important. Hiking, walking, and dog walking are kind of the current top tier, if you will, of just kind of general public recreational opportunities. A strong interest in expanding the trail network for a variety of users. Again, maintaining a separation of uses is important. Conservation and preservation were also very important to the folks that we heard from. Again, you see this kind of reoccurring, this idea of could there be some additional recreational amenities or features such as benches, signage, trash cans, restrooms, to help support the activities that currently take place. And then a general statement around, wouldn't it be great if we could have more maintenance and have the site kind of better taken care of or cleaned up periodically. So next, please. One of the things that we're pretty excited about, and I'm not sure if any of the folks on the line here today were our winners from the survey, but we had great support really from the community, from the various organizations and groups out on the property that are going to be giving their time and offering up these prizes to folks that participated, or the winners that participated in the survey. So thanks to each and every one of you. So next slide. All right, so want to share some of the key takeaways from the survey. And so one of the questions we asked, when you think about the rodeo grounds property, what do you like best? And there were several things that seemed to rise to the top. One, open space, just the openness of the property, the views, the scenic views to the west, a place for pets, the rodeo and events, and that it's undeveloped and it's open. Were some of those top comments. So next, please. How did you find out about the rodeo grounds and Chicago Ranch master plan? And we used both what I would say are kind of the old school methods or traditional methods, such as the newspaper and newsletters, but we also, again, used MyBV, social media, emails, and virtual outreach through the rec department. And I think also looks like was a lot of folks said through word of mouth. So I know we haven't reached everyone. We hope to do this throughout the process, but we were pretty pleased, I think, with certainly the response we got to the survey. What was interesting, 92% of the survey respondents reside within the town or within the county, and that also 92% are full-time residents. So that gives you some sense of who all responded. Next, please. We asked how many times do you visit the rodeo grounds? And I think what's really telling here is the vast majority of folks visit the rodeo grounds only 1 to 6 times per year. And we have largely interpreted that as many of these folks are there for special events. And that's why they perhaps are going there just a few times a year, whether it be for the 4th of July or perhaps the rodeo. But then the question is raised, well, what perhaps recreational opportunities might we add that would encourage the community to be out there on a more regular basis? So next, please. When you think about the rodeo grounds, what would you like to see changed? We heard a variety of things. Nothing unsure was kind of the received the most responses, but also advocacy for new improved facilities, maintenance cleanup, trail system, more recreational opportunities, events, improving the stands, and that was specific to the rodeo grounds, bathrooms and other upgrades, and you can kind of see the list continues from there. So next, please. We asked about seasonal activities and what are the top 3 warm seasonal recreational activities that you would like to see on the property. Hiking and walking, dog walking, rodeo, fireworks, biking, and special events were kind of that top tier, but there were lots of other interests as well. We also asked about winter options, cold season, and not surprisingly, hiking and walking, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, fat biking, dog walking kind of made that top tier. And we certainly recognize that things like cross-country skiing and snowshoeing are absolutely snow dependent, and maybe there are opportunities to only do that. The conditions are great a few days out of the year, but there's clearly advocacy for that. So next, please. Which statement best represents your personal values and hopes for the master plan? What we really wanted to understand here was how much interest there is in really what I call conservation or preservation, natural resource preservation, and then this idea of introducing recreational activities. And what we heard loud and clear here was there's a desire for really both, and to try and find the right and appropriate balance. Sometimes when we do this type of planning, we will see the vast majority of folks way on the conservation side or way on the recreation side. In this case, again, there seems to be a real desire, and the majority of folks said, I want a balance of natural resource conservation and recreational activities. So next, please. We asked then, what's your biggest concern that you want to see addressed in the plan? And this was kind of interesting, and there's some somewhat maybe conflicting information here, but preservation conservation was the top choice. There were folks that said we don't want any housing or residential development taking place in that area. Others said we want recreational opportunities. Others, though, said we want to see housing, and some of the write-in comments had to do with the need for affordable housing within the community. Others said, we just want what's best for the community, and then access and maintenance for the other things they wanted to see addressed. So next, please. When you think about successful outcomes for the master plan process, what's most important to you? Again, some similarities here: conservation, recreation space, what's best for the community, access for all, free or low cost, good planning, community stakeholder input, community use, and you can kind of see then the list continues on from there. So next. Great. At this point, what I want to do is ask if there are any questions about the survey that we might be able to answer. Otherwise, what I'd like to do is really shift into the conceptual site plan and spend the majority of our time kind of talking about that and getting your feedback and questions. So any comments, questions about the process or outreach today? A question that I see online: are the results available for review? And the answer is yes. I believe a lot of this is currently available on the BV site, my BV site, and we can share. I may ask either Bryn or Annie to share the link to that here in the chat box as we move forward. If not, we'll certainly get that information out to you. So great. There are no other questions. I'm going to just keep going here. And so let's talk a little bit about the conceptual site layout. Next slide, please. Great. I see Annie just posted the MyBV site. So please check that out and you'll find the results from the survey. I want to just give a little bit of really context for, in addition to what we heard from the community, some of the critical important site data that also helped inform this kind of draft plan or idea that we're going to present in a moment. First of all, the context matters, and proximity to the town of Buena Vista, and really looking and thinking about where other recreational opportunities currently are. A lot of the community's recreational opportunities are really on, if you will, on the west side and northwest side, and down by the river. And so one of the things we heard in the process is, wow, it's great, particularly in some ways as the community grows, but for existing residents to have recreational opportunities on this side of town really kind of provides some balance and some easy access that currently doesn't exist. So next, please. We looked at the current Trails and Parks Master Plan and really looked at how trails are proposed currently to connect out to this site. And so that what we're proposing from a trail perspective could just become part of that bigger system. So if you're a kid that lives, let's say, in kind of the center of town or on the west side of town, that you'd be able to access this property via the trail system too. We thought was a great thing and a great benefit. So next, please. We also had the benefit of looking at Strava data. And for those of you that may not know what Strava is, it's an online app, and a pretty significant number of recreational users use this to kind of track their rides or their hikes or their walks, whatever that might be. And no, it doesn't capture certainly every recreationalist out there, but it does kind of show paints an interesting picture of where are folks currently and the trail systems that they are heavily using. So the more red on this map, the more heavy use those particular either streets or trails, more activity that they're receiving. And then on the blue end, of course, that's lower use. So you can see there's a lot of use currently happening down along the river and on the kind of east side of town, but not a lot really out here towards the rodeo grounds, but there is certainly some. So next slide. We looked at natural resources and natural resource values, and one of the things that we certainly saw when we were out on site, that to a large degree, a lot of the grasslands that are there are really in pretty decent shape as a whole. Yes, there's some areas that are somewhat problematic, but as a whole, they're in great shape. A lot of the real, if you think about things like whether they be endangered species or really high value natural resources, we don't necessarily have that associated with these parcels like we might find down along the arc or in other areas really in the proximity to Buena Vista. So, but it's part of the due diligence that we go through when we look at a piece of property. So next, please. Thinking about where existing utilities are, and because we heard a lot of advocacy for additional services or recreational facilities out on this property. Well, to give some thought to where might utilities be extended to first, particularly because this is 600 acres and it's really on the outskirts. What makes sense, and what was really evident to us, and certainly in our conversations with the town leadership, that it's really that northeast corner of the site that is most likely, or where existing utilities are in the closest proximity. They're still not right at the corner, but if we are going to think about facilities that need utilities, that would be the most logical place. So next, please. Also really we looked at adjacent land use and really try to understand about what does it mean to be a good neighbor, and think about what those adjacent land uses might be or evolve over time. It's another important kind of building block for the plan. Next. All right, now we get to kind of the exciting and I think the most important part of our conversation tonight, and this is what we're calling this preliminary site design, or a future alternative for both the rodeo grounds and Chicago Ranch. So essentially, if you were to take kind of the northern half of this concept, that's what is the rodeo grounds today. And the southern half, which represents right about 300 acres, is the Chicago Ranch, or what the area that was acquired by Triview. So the first thing you'll notice is that we are looking at how do we merge those two into one kind of holistic sort of recreational opportunity. We also, because we heard a lot of advocacy for open space, one of the things that we felt was really important is that more than 75% of the overall site would remain in open space, and there wouldn't be programmed activities except for a trail network that would kind of traverse and make a series of different loops throughout the property. Another thing that we heard from the community was that a lot of the trails that folks use today are fairly difficult, or they're in steeper, rougher terrain. And this idea of having something that's pretty family friendly, maybe universally accessible. It's a place to maybe learn to ride a mountain bike. You're not challenged to ride it right from the trailhead in the same way you certainly would be in some of the trails down by the river. That was a desirable sort of thing. And so also thinking about the trails in their length, and could we come up with a trail loop, and the red happens to be a 5K loop. And in talking with the school district, that was something that they thought, that might be a good idea, and that could be used by the school, for instance. So a variety of uses for those trails. We have not at this point defined, if they're limited to certain users, or we've had questions about, dogs, should they be on leash or off leash on the trails? Those are the topics we really want to dive in with you kind of later on in our time together tonight. All of the existing activities that take place, whether it's the UAS club or the drone club kind of on the eastern edge, or the sportsman's club, which you kind of see there towards the center, or RC airstrip, or the rodeo grounds, all of those established activities, we are proposing to stay, that they would remain where they are. Many of of the organizations have put, pretty significant capital investments into those facilities. So we simply think that makes sense for that to continue. Each of those groups also have thoughts and hopes about maybe growing or expanding the activities. Some within the footprint they already have. In the case of sportsmen, they would like to perhaps do some expansion into the future. But again, we see all of those uses really remaining there. When we spoke to them, all of them also said, yeah, we'd love to figure out ways to kind of expand maybe programming to include youth in the community or those kinds of things. But from a footprint standpoint, they would remain. This idea of introducing a bike skills park on this side of town, and again, this would be a place really for beginners, and that again, really in contrast to maybe some of the other trails throughout the community. But this little area here has a bit more topography change. It's not a lot, but a bit more than what we see throughout the site. So that's why we've said maybe the bike skills park should be in that location. We have a series of different trailheads, and you can kind of see some arrows. I won't spend a lot of time on that, but one of the trailheads would be off of Rodeo Road, kind of providing direct access into the bike skills park, but also then trailheads throughout the rest of the site. I saw a question that just came in. I'll kind of address that as I go. The question had to do with ADA access. We believe, and while we haven't defined exactly which sections of trails, we do believe there would be a great opportunity here because of the relatively flat terrain to be able to have some of these trails be ADA accessible. Whether I think personally, I envision those to be soft surface trails, but built to a grade and a cross slope that would meet ADA or Americans with Disabilities Act guidelines. And so that's something new, and I think a kind of a great opportunity. I want to turn now, if I may, to kind of that northeast corner of the site. That's where you see the majority of the facilities and what we see as being almost like a little recreation campus, so to speak. You heard me mention earlier that if we are to think about restrooms or introducing a community center, a recreation facility, or things like this turf sports complex where you need those restrooms, we're most likely going to be able to get utility extensions to this corner first. And so for all of those reasons, plus easier access from kind of the core of BV, we felt that it made sense to locate that really on the corner of Gregg and Rodeo. Also, another key piece of that was we really wanted from that location to preserve as much of those big sweeping views to the west as possible. So we didn't put many built facilities or activities, if you will, within the center of the property, or certainly toward the western edge. We wanted to keep that, and particularly, we think one of the best views, if you will, and kind of experiences is when you approach the property from the east and you're looking, you see the rodeo stands and you see the mountains in the backdrop. And so the main entrance into the property there between this, I'm showing as the turf sports complex, this community recreation center, multi-purpose pavilion, and special event camping, that aligns on an access with the rodeo stands, and really it really emphasizes, I think, that sense of arrival, and of course the great takes advantage of the great view. We have a lot of space for event parking, both east and west of the rodeo grounds, and to support whether that's the rodeo itself, 4th of July, the gem show, or potentially many other events. I want to dig a little deeper and talk a little bit about the multi-purpose pavilion and the turf and the sports complex, and where those ideas kind of came from in that incubation. again, we heard kind of universally this idea of, wouldn't it be great to have some type of a covered but outdoor community gathering space, whether that's to help support, let's say, activities associated with the rodeo, or activities associated with if there's a youth sports expansion of youth sports here on this turf sports complex, that would really work well. This idea of a community and recreation center, we haven't gotten to the point of thinking specifically what that would be, but at a minimum, we would imagine that it would have restrooms, that it might have some community space, but it's strategically located that a variety of different events and activities could take advantage of that. We also heard a desire for a special event camping, that we know that takes place currently, whether it be the rodeo. I understand some of that may take place associated with the gem show and other events, and that this could be a good place. And again, having restrooms, having a pavilion could also work well with having that special event camping option very close by. If I may, I'm going to shift now a little bit and talk about circulation through the site, and then I want to talk about dogs and the dog park. The white kind of dashed lines represent the corridors or proposed roads for vehicular access. The narrow lines, which would be the red, the yellow, or the light blue, represent really trails or some maintenance road access, but largely a trail network. We were challenged to think kind of strategically about how could we limit or better manage, kind of as we're adding facilities out here, better manage the vehicular traffic and access. Number one, it's fewer miles of road for the town to have to maintain, but also kind of from a safety standpoint, that if we have a lot of kids out here with these various facilities, having those vehicles really somewhat more limited to access the various parking was a good thing overall. Now let's kind of shift to the dog and the dog park. We received lots of different feedback, some of it very conflicting, about how to approach dogs and dog use. We know today that is one of the activities that currently takes place. It's not really managed to date, but we heard from folks that love to walk their dogs out in this space. From folks that like to be able to kind of turn their dog loose really within this space. We heard from others that one of the things they like to do is pull up off of Rodeo Road, let their dog out, and then drive kind of through the property. The dog runs kind of beside or after the car, and then they pick them up on Greg Road. And that's a pretty unique opportunity, especially in the wintertime, exercise the dog, but not necessarily having to be out in the elements. We also heard from folks that said that they're uncomfortable being out there because there are dogs kind of running wild, or that a lot of the dog poop doesn't get cleaned up. So we know that there are folks that feel strongly on both sides of all of this. One of the decisions that we made in putting together this draft plan was saying, if we're going to have far more activities that happen throughout the year, if we're going to have a lot more use and people, it makes more sense to try and come up with a management plan for dogs, because you'll be able to avoid potential conflicts and whatnot. So what we have tonight, and would love overall feedback here on this, we have identified a dog park area located along Greg Road. Part of that is because we know some folks like to walk their dogs from the neighborhood to the north, so we located it there. It has its own entrance off of Greg Road. To give you some sense of the size and the scale of this. So this bubble here, this fenced dog park area, represents 8.5 acres. Or if you think about a football field, it's actually 6 full-size football fields. So because we had a question about, well, how big is this? And I know that the dog park, the River Park dog park, this particular site is 500% larger in size than that park. So this is a lot of room and a lot of space, and it probably could be expanded if there's desire advocacy for that. But just to be clear on what at least is proposed on this draft for dogs. But the idea would be that it would be fenced for those folks that want to just be able to let their dog kind of run. They could utilize that space. I think our general thought on the trails, at least as to put kind of a straw man out there for conversation tonight, is that these trails, particularly those kind of in the north end, we think would make sense for dogs to be either on leash or perhaps off leash. That's what we want your comments on. But we imagine that all of the trails could be accessible by folks with dogs if they wanted to hike with their pet. We also then were trying to be very cognizant of buffers around the edge of the site. So most of the trails stay, particularly as we get to the south side, between 300 or 500 feet from the property boundary. We felt that was important, again, to kind of protect some of the privacy and of adjacent property owners. So I know that was a lot. That was kind of a 10,000 foot kind of perspective on what's proposed. Again, we look forward to your feedback on the various topics. What I'd like to do is maybe answer any questions you might have, but keep in mind, if you will, that what we're going to do in a moment, once we kind of work through the questions, we're going to then invite you to move directly into a survey that Annie will be posting the link for here in just a moment. And there you'll see a series of questions about dogs, about trails, about special event camping, and about this overall. There'll be opportunities to kind of advocate for things within that setting. And then we're going to come back and we're going to have discussions about each of those various topics. So I invite you to participate kind of as you wish. We want to give you some options here as we move into that piece of the evening. So let me see here. I'm going to pull up the chat and see some questions here that I will try and respond to. Please discuss what's currently happening regarding Sportsman Club and UAS Club. It's a real kind of a 10,000 foot perspective. The Sportsman's Club, it's a shooting club. I want to be clear that it is focused on trap and skeet or shotgun use. It is not a long range rifle, but they have been there for a good number of years. And I understand that the club is available for members, but that they also invite the public. The UAS Club, I'm not going to use the right term for this, but I think of drones, where you can, they have a variety of facilities out there or obstacles that you could fly drones through. And I know that in addition to kind of the recreation side of that, they also do training and a variety of other things. So I hope that helps answer that question. How much camping are you proposing to host? How many sites? I don't know that we have an answer for that. I think we need to look a little more closely and understand what the need and the demand is there. And I guess I imagine that is scalable, that you may have, depending on the size of the event or the amount of camping that you may need, it may certainly change and flex seasonally. We have a significant amount of space, so we certainly could accommodate a lot. Let's see, the first question had to do with ADA. I think I answered that, but the question is, would these be suitable for an e-bike? And certainly from a terrain standpoint and a trail tread, absolutely, I think there are opportunities for that. And the question was, would it be similar to the Mineral Belt Trail in Leadville? And I think that's a possibility. I'd like to hear more about that. Let's see. Please discuss what a turf sports complex means. Oh, great. So turf is artificial turf, artificial grass. And really the reason for that, we know we get a lot of wind out here. So we would get a lot of, wind desiccation, but also we don't have access to a lot of water. And I know that there's sensitivities to that in the community. And so the idea would be that this complex from a sports perspective would be able to be striped in a variety of different ways or used in a variety of ways, whether it's soccer, football. I think there's certainly room for baseball. Again, really multi-use, flexible kind of space. Partly what we heard is that the fields that are down by the river are getting a tremendous amount of use and sometimes too much use, and to have additional play space would be great. Please explain the potential recharge area. Great, and I missed that. Down in the southwest corner of the site, and I want to emphasize this is potential. So as part of this process, as I mentioned, TriView is interested in the water. Today, there's water that is delivered to this site via a channel, and then kind of flood irrigated for a hayfield. And it's a portion of the Chicago Ranch. What is proposed is that that water would not be diverted out of Cottonwood Creek, but rather continue to flow down Cottonwood, then flow down the Arkansas River as it did prior to being diverted to this property, and then be utilized downstream. Part of that, one of the things that TriView is looking at, and I will confess again, I'm not the expert in this, but they are looking at then how do they make sure all water rights users are made whole and kept whole. And one potential opportunity would be to do a recharge area. Think of it as like a low depressed area where water would be allowed to kind of seep into the water table. This is just a potential. We wanted to show it on the map because it's one of the ideas that's being talked about, but whether that actually happens or not, that's more subject to a lot more technical study. Let's see, the area out there is very windy and barren. I'm not sure anything will grow without requiring water. What are you proposing? The vast majority of this, we are not proposing to landscape or water. That what we basically, I think, heard was keeping a lot of this as just open space, and in its natural condition is desirable because of preservation and views and those kinds of things. Let's see, a synthetic turf can be expensive to maintain. Yes, it can, I think, but it's a kind of a trade-off between some of the expenses that are there or the expense of water. And then a comment here, it seems like a lot of this is a candidate for GOCO grants. I think it very much could be. So great questions. I hope I captured all of those. And there's one here early on. Were there many concerned about agriculture, rodeo, horse farmers events for community indoor? Make sure I captured the question correctly. Yeah, I'll try and explain what I heard. And this is specifically for arena and event center. I didn't talk maybe as much about the pavilion as I could have. When we spoke to the folks on the rodeo committee, for instance, they said, sometimes you get inclement weather. It would be great to have that kind of a covered pavilion, covered space. And maybe you can close the west side so you block off the wind. We also heard from some folks that said, boy, is there an opportunity to put just an outdoor kind of covered hockey rink seasonally that's not refrigerated, but uses the shade from the pavilion to keep the ice. We don't know exactly how this would be programmed, but we heard from a number of folks that said, even when it comes to the gem show, wow, to be able to utilize the big covered space could be a real plus. So yes, there was significant advocacy, but for a wide variety, I think, different programming and community uses. So great. Let's see, someday the town will get a full recreation center. Is that the location of the future area top right corner? I don't know that we've defined that, to what extent, is this a full-blown recreation center? Is it more of maybe it's a restroom, maybe it provides showers for some of the special event parking and then small community room, or it could be much bigger. There's a lot of room and a lot of space here. It's flexible. And I think there just needs to be more conversation about that. So great. With that, what I would like to do, and I don't know, Annie, I trust you've put into our chat the link to the survey. Great. So what I'd like to do is you're welcome to head to that survey. You'll be leaving, I understand you'll be leaving this Zoom meeting, but we'd like to give you 15 minutes or so to fill out that survey and then invite you to come back into the Zoom meeting. We'll keep this on and live. And then we want to dive into really specific questions if you'd like to participate, again, in trails, dogs, special events, camping, and then about the design itself. So with that, thanks for listening and participating, and we will reconvene here in about 15 minutes. So thank you.
This is Earl. Looks like a few people have jumped on. If you're just on, welcome. In the chat function, you can find a link to a survey under my BV that the folks are taking. Then we're going to reconvene here in a little less than 15 minutes. So stand by, do the survey if you can, and then we'll see you soon.
Hi, Earl. I think we're ready to kind of regather here as a group, if that works for you.
That works great. I will keep admitting people as they come back on.
Fantastic. Great. Well, welcome back. And I hope the survey worked for you and a number of you had a chance to fill that out. We look forward to reading each and every one of those responses, and we'll provide that information on the MyBV website as well, so everyone kind of gets the benefit of that. If we were meeting together in the community room tonight, we would have a table set up with a map with a site plan for trails and dogs and special events, camping, and so on. But the way we're going to do the next best thing tonight, and that is have kind of a focused, moderated conversation about each of these subjects. And kind of given our timeline, it looks like we have about 10 minutes if we were to give equal allotment to each subject. But I also want to let you know that if for some reason we don't get to enough depth on a particular topic, we're still here later tonight and we'll be doing this again. So that's an option. But you can also certainly reach out to us, and perhaps maybe some of the topics may not need the full 10 minutes. So, but what I'd like to do is let's talk about trails first. And if Bryn, if you could go back to take our presentation back to the site plan here. And what I'd like to do is kind of start the conversation around when you think about your kind of your hopes for the number of trails or miles of trails out on the site. What would you like to see, or perhaps even the type of uses you'd like to see for the trails? We would very much appreciate that. So, and what I'd like to do, Earl, if we can have folks either write in by chat or certainly participate here by kind of turning on their mics.
Yeah, let's just people could, if they could use the reactions button and just raise their hand, and then we can get to them that way.
Great. Any comments regarding trails?
Well, this is Chris. I raised my hand.
Great.
So
Chris,
what I'm
are your
thinking
thoughts?
is, I ride my bike a lot. The trails, as far as lanes around the town of Buena Vista, are very limited. I've ridden in Denison and other towns. It's just not safe. There's just too much traffic. So I would like to see that red trail primarily open to the youth and to the seniors of the area. So I'm not thinking, I don't need any challenging single track areas on that red trail, just so the kids can ride all the way around, or the aging population of Buena Vista itself.
Great. Thank you. That's good feedback. Sounds like this is, again, a unique opportunity then that just doesn't exist in other places. So great. Other thoughts about trails? If I expanded a little bit to talk about the Bike Skills Park, welcome to comments on that, because that's in many ways kind of part of the trail network.
We also had Carly raise her hand for a comment on trails. So go ahead, Carly.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to raise my hand. I was just agreeing with Chris.
That's
great.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Carly. A comment here, super happy to see a beginner biking area for kids. Great. Again, I think this space and this trail network might be conducive for events, a 5K run, for instance, whether it's through the school or other potential events.
Libby has her hand up.
Great.
I think it would be nice to have some of the trails be paved so that people could skate on them or ride bikes or have strollers. without having to sink into the soft surface.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I think there certainly could be opportunities for that, especially maybe, closer to a lot of the other facilities that are there. That may be a logical kind of extension of the trail system. So thanks, Libby. Right. Anything else related to trails? Great. What I'd like to do then is maybe shift into conversation about dogs. I realize that there may be comments also related to dogs and trails, but would really like the kind of the community's thoughts, reactions to what we've proposed, which is this, it is a fenced dog park area, again, about 8.5 acres in size, or 6 football fields in size. But that's something different than what is there today and how it's used today. So thoughts or feedback?
The existing dog park down there, the biggest one, is that 2 football fields, or what approximately is that?
I may ask Bryn, who's on my team. This is, I think it's about the size of 1 football field.
Okay, thank you.
Just to put it in perspective. Yeah.
We have Wendy with her hand up. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, sorry about that, trouble unmuting. Yeah, first of all, just thank you. This is super, super exciting to see this. And my comment around dogs would be, so I walk my dogs out there almost every day. So definitely kind of have a sense of what's going on out there in that realm. And I wonder if it's possible to expand the dog park. And I'm not just saying that, the reason I'm saying that is I think it would be awesome if we could have a dog park. And one of the reasons that I think, and I talk to other dog owners when I'm out there, that I think it's so awesome for dog owners right now is that it's like a walking progression. And that creates a whole different dynamic for owners and for dogs, because dogs don't, and you'll see this in my comments, but dogs don't like kind of get caught up in as much like arguments with each other when they're moving beyond each other. And it's also healthier for us dog owners. Like we get out there, we get a walk, we get a break every day, we get to see the beautiful views. So I don't know if that could be expanded and maybe have like a trail within it, and maybe it would even be one way. The model I have in mind, which we don't have nearly as much space, but is what happens at the off-leash dog area at the state park at Cherry Creek Reservoir in the Denver area. And when you go there, you get a wonderful, walk and get out in the outdoors, but the dogs also get a chance to walk. And just kind of on the flip side of that, I never take my dogs to typical dog parks because the dynamic is so different. That walking dynamic just really is much, much healthier, I think. So I don't know if we could sort of accomplish that, and maybe it would be like a one-way loop. And then the other thing I would just recommend is having, I thought, well, maybe you could move the dog park south and that might help with having a little more space. But I do think there needs to also be parking at the dog park, because a lot of people do drive there and then walk their dogs, including me. But super excited of the idea of getting that space out there cleaned up and all this potential. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Wendy. We'll definitely take a look at the Cherry Creek model. Thanks for suggesting that. And I think there are opportunities probably to accomplish much of what you are advocating for, because there's a lot of room, right, and a lot of space. So great. Thank you. It looks like a couple of comments here have come in. Nice to have a sizable fenced area to keep dog and non-dog people happy. A great reference to Cherry Creek and the Loop. Love the idea of walking the dogs as an option. And I like her or Wendy's directional idea. So great. Any other comments or thoughts about dogs, dog facilities? Right. Well, I thought this portion we'd have a really lively a conversation based on some of the feedback, but I really appreciate, I think, some of the good thoughts and not only about facilities but also management, right? And how do dogs and people get together and in a way that everybody has a great time. And well, it's another piece of this master plan is that we're going to be making recommendations from an operational standpoint, management standpoint. We've talked a lot with the town staff about, you know, we don't want to create something where we get too far out over the tips of our skis. In other words, create a plan that's really difficult to take care of or manage and maintain. And that's another key piece of this as well. So, and I think the dog conversation is apropos. So good. Great. Well, unless there's anything else related to dogs, I'd like to now shift to camping and the special events camping area. As I mentioned, we've tried to strategically locate it here off of Rodeo Road. And the idea again is that special event camping, it was in pretty close proximity to where there would be restrooms and other kind of ancillary facilities, as well as this multi-use pavilion and so on. What I'd like to ask a couple of things and a couple of kind of probing questions here. One is, when you think about special event camping, what amenities do you think are appropriate for that? Number one, I mean, and as well as does special event camping kind of happen or happen year round, or is there a need for it year round or just for special events? Because I think this is one of the questions that the staff is asking as well. What's your perception on needs and opportunities? Great. Not seeing any comments here. I guess I want to ask Earl, is there anything you would like to specifically ask about special event camping tonight? Oh, I see Wendy's hand just went up.
Yeah, maybe I'll just start off with a quick comment and then let Wendy jump in. But yeah, the original thought from the town's perspective is to have a designated area to support camping that would be tied to a special event, like the Collegiate Sand Peaks Rodeo or the Bronco Fest, or any other future events that we have out there, Rock and Gem Mineral Show, where vendors need a place to stay and maybe other guests need a place to stay. But that's tied to a special event application. We are always talking about, you know, what does our county need and area need for camping to support, whether it's tourism on very busy weekends, or even, you know, looking down the road for how can we support transitional housing needs. But really for this purpose, we're focusing on special event camping. That's the one that we need right now, but it could morph into a lot of different things as we get feedback from the community as we continue to grow as a town.
Great. Here's a comment from B. Davis. It looks like people do camp out there now. My only concern is traffic, safety, and facilities. It is very dry out there. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, today there's very little in terms of support facilities. And the next comment looks like from Danielle. It would be great to have camping for special events that keeps people off ball fields and spreads out congestion from downtown. Great comment, Danielle. And what's something I didn't really talk about in the presentation, but one of the opportunities I think this space provides. I know there are many special events that happen downtown, and a lot of those, it's probably the best place to do that. But maybe some of those events, particularly as they continue to grow or become more popular, that this would provide a second option. And if those types of events need special, or need places for overnight camping, again, it starts to relieve some pressure that you all are seeing as a community downtown. So that's part of the thought process. Great. Anything else related to the special events?
Wendy, did you have a question or comment?
No, I agree with everything that's been said. And yeah, I was just gonna also emphasize like clear guidelines for what the camping entails and then just facilities. So I think it was all said. Thank you.
Hey, Earl, this is Chris again. I got a question. And I'm not a UAS person, so I don't really know, but it seems to me like that top corner is a little crowded. And if UAS is kind of a spectator sport, I like watching them. It seems to me like that might be better located out between the north open space and the south open space. So it kind of gets that west half of the plan a little bit more active and involved. You might want that space for that special event camping for something else down the road. So that's my only thought.
Okay. I know that, thanks for sharing that. I think one of the things that's a little bit deceiving about the map that you see is the USA Club. It looks like they have this giant footprint. Where their facilities sit are very close to where the short little white arrow is located, right off of Rodeo Road and a little bit from there to the west. But what that big gray area really represents is kind of their fly zone where they're flying these drones. That's kind of the airspace in which they use. So their footprint itself is actually much smaller, if that's helpful, Chris. But I do see your point about, if there are ways to expand special event camping in the future, or even event parking, being able to do that is important. So that's great. Great. Well, what I'd like to do now then is
Chris?
Go ahead.
Real quick,
Yeah.
Angie S had a question in chat. Would camping be available outside of special events?
We've had some conversations about that. Right now, the proposal is for special event camping, but I think we are also, open to ideas, and if there's a perception that there's a need and demand for that, I guess we'd like to be able to collect those kinds of comments as well, and we take those back to the town staff and weigh the pros and cons. So I think it's a great comment. Great. Well, all right. Well, I'd like to use the time we have remaining here. And it looks like it's 6:30 or just a little bit after, and kind of dedicate the next maybe 10 or 15 minutes to talking about the site plan overall. If you have comments that are beyond kind of trails, dogs, and special events, things you want to, maybe it's things that you were hoping to see on the plan and you don't, things maybe we've missed, or if you have concerns about any particular proposed use. I would love that kind of feedback, and because we want this plan to be the best it can be. So with that, any more, I would call them maybe more general comments or questions? Great. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate the thank you and your involvement tonight. Great. Let's see a couple of the comments here that have come in. Thank you. I want to thank everyone on the planning team and all the community members that have helped shape this. Would you charge a fee for special events camping? I'm not sure I have a good answer for that. As I understand it, and Earl, I may need your help with this one, but that it could be when a particular group wants to use this space, perhaps there's a fee associated with that. Whether there's individual fees for each camper. Earl, do you have any thoughts on that, or what makes sense from a management or operation standpoint?
Sure, you bet. So the way we do it now is the applicant for a special event pays a fee to rent a facility, so like the rodeo grounds. And then there's smaller additional fees like for street closure or for specific needs from Public Works. And so whatever the fees are, they're again very attainable and affordable for event organizers. Those fees can change over time, and we propose a new fee structure to our Board of Trustees each year that they review and approve. But event organizers have done it in different ways. They've allowed people to camp for free, and then sometimes they manage it on their own and charge a fee to help offset some of the costs or raise revenue for one of their not-for-profits that they're representing. So it's we require them to have a good plan that includes quiet hours and trash mitigation and restroom needs, and when people can come in and out, and we highly request that they have a host and a direct point of contact. So it's worked out well, but yeah, we're kind of keeping a close eye on it as the demand is growing, not only here, but also around other facilities in Buena Vista.
Great. Great. Well, thank you all so much for participating tonight. And I really look forward to meeting with you or meeting with you again when we can all meet in person at upcoming meetings. But again, we look forward to kind of reading all the comments from the survey, putting that together and giving everyone opportunity to see that as well. Again, I encourage you to go to the MyBV site and kind of work through a lot of the information that's there. This presentation will be posted there, this information, so you can refer back to that if you have friends or others in the community that want to kind of be in the know and be part of the process. We certainly welcome that, and would appreciate each of you kind of passing the word out so we can get as many folks involved as possible. So with that, I think we're gonna kind of sign out of this particular session. Again, we'll be back at 7 o'clock, and again, same presentation. But I also want to thank Earl for being our moderator tonight and kind of keeping us on time and on topic. So thank you, Earl. And with that, again, just a big word of thanks to each and every one of you.